Welcome to the SRS Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron J. Babiar, and I'm the Training Director of Support Raising Solutions. Whether you're a new ministry worker or a veteran looking to increase your competence and confidence, Support Raising Solutions seeks to bless you in your quest to be a spiritually healthy, vision-driven, fully funded Great Commission worker. My guest this week is DeNail Sparks. This is our fifth and final episode, and we're talking about outliers in the support raising meeting. So, DeNail, my friend, welcome yet again.
Oh, my pleasure, Aaron. So glad to be with you.
Tell us briefly, I know you've been married for 25 years, maybe 25 plus years. How did you get a wonderful woman to hang out with you and stick around and raise and live off support? What happened there?
You know, what's funny is it's hard to believe it's 25 years. They've been short, having lots of fun. So time is definitely flying. But I actually met my future wife in college. We knew each other for about 7 years. She was already graduating by the time I was a sophomore. She went off and started her own career and worked in Los Angeles as a businesswoman.
Okay.
The Lord put it on her heart to come back and become a minister. And by the time she came back, I had already been elevated in the ranks of my college ministry, and we became functional peers.
Okay.
I pastored a group of people, she pastored a group of people, and so we had to relate to each other as pastors, but we lived about 4 houses from each other. So I'd have a big meeting in my group setting, and she would bring her people, and I would walk her home. It was in the process of walking her home about twice a week where we really got to know each other. I already admired her.
You are smooth. You are.
It was great. Oh, it was fantastic. Those were the slowest walks of my life. She only lived 2 houses down, but it would take a good 45 minutes. God definitely set it up. The lights kind of came on. I would walk her home, and this went on for maybe 2 years until finally, you know what? I said, look, I have to make a decision. I have to do something different in our relationship. And over a short course of time, I told her I was in love with her and asked her to marry me. She said yes. And then I found out I was the dumb one. She had felt the same way and was waiting on me to, and I think that's almost a proverb when it comes to men and women, but she was waiting on me to kind of get the clue that it wasn't my smoothness walking her home. She was letting me walk her home.
Look at that. Look at the wisdom she had. That's awesome.
Yeah, but we fell in love while I was in college. She was already a graduate at the time, and we went on and started a couple of ministries together. And so,
oh, that's so cool.
Love of my life, and it's been just
Your wife is Lanier?
That's right.
Yeah, well, let her know that we are super thankful for your time and that you're willing to share some of your wisdom and knowledge on the SRS podcast. I think it's a blessing to many people.
She'll love that. Thank you.
Yes. Well, today like I said, we're in part 5 of 5, and one of the outliers that we have been saving till last is what happens when you're sitting down, you're in a support raising meeting, and they begin to let's say refocus. You've started to explain your vision and perhaps a story of a changed life, and maybe you even haven't got to the point where you invite them to be a part. And man, they're off on a tangent. They've changed tracks, they've changed directions, and all of a sudden they're running down a different road and maybe even trying to prescribe some things for you. Have you had that happen?
Oh, yes. You know, what's funny is one of my mentors said this. He said, when people get around you and start to create your own world, most of the time they create your world too small. They always have a plan for you. They always have a vision for you. They always have a pathway for you. And most of the time, they're only dealing with what they've seen and assessed.
Okay.
And so 9 times out of 10, the world they're trying to create for you is too small.
Right.
And my wife and I, when we would actually do this as a tandem and go out together. It's funny that you had me introduce my wife. She had a very short toleration for people who tried to redirect our ministry because she had a very deep conviction also regarding what we were called to do. And some of the redirects, they weren't innocent. They weren't misunderstandings. They were limitations.
Okay.
And for your listeners, I'm Black. My wife is Black. And we unfortunately met with a series of people who did not believe that people of one race or color could win people of another race or color. So there was a huge sensitivity that she and I had developed. And this is where God's grace came in. Not only was there a huge sensitivity, there was a huge grace.
Okay.
God gave us.
Praise the Lord for that.
A wave of compassion for people also, because it just let us know among non-Christians and Christians alike, we have our own parameters and presuppositions of what ministry does or could look like. And we all do that. It doesn't even have to do necessarily with the color of skin. It could be background. It can be the way we talk. It could be mannerisms or customs, etc., location. I live in the South now, and so ministry in the South looks very different than ministry looked like in California.
Yes, it is.
And they're just cultural. So not all of them were quote unquote racial, but I use that as an example because it was the most obvious disconnect that we were having with some of the people we share our ministry with. I'll give the story. We were ministering in one city, had a track record and a multicultural Bible study going on. We were winning people to the Lord, but as we were sharing with people in the local community, we noticed that there was a shift, and the shift would be, we're talking about college ministry and how God is working and moving them under freshmen and the Greeks. And we actually had a Bible study to people in the Greek system and to graduate students. And this person kept going back to, though, in our city, gangs are an issue. I think you would be a great candidate to minister to the gangs. And I said, no, I'm a college minister. This is what I do. This is where God's blessing us. And he would not let it go. He said, no, the gangs. And I'll support you if you go out and minister to the gangs. That's where God needs you. That's the greatest need. And my wife, of course, put two and two together and said, okay, he's only saying that because, look at us and look at the gangs, et cetera. She said that under her breath. And I said, but, I get it. I understand what he's saying. I disagree with what he's saying. Perhaps there's another way. And this is, I'll get to a better story in a second. So he would not let it go. So finally, I just said, yeah, those gangs really need people to preach Christ to them. Those gangs really need to do it. So we had a great conversation about it. But I said, I'm going to have nothing to do with that now. And of course, that meeting ended with no partnership, no agreement, et cetera.
Right. And probably not a whole lot for the relationship either.
Oh, it didn't do anything for the relationship. My wife wouldn't have anything to do with that person ever again.
Yeah, but, I can understand why.
We didn't see him again. But here's what I found. There are people who try and twist your ministry to what they think it should be.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they're doing it because they don't know better. There are other times that they're doing it for selfish reasons. They want to hire you. They want to bring you in. They want to limit you. They want to expose or what do you call it, manipulate. All those things sometimes creep into it. Well, what I found is that there was one gentleman I met with who began to redirect our ministry and really question our calling as well. And I put down my paperwork, put down what I was sharing with them. I said, let me tell you a story. And I told him pretty succinctly my testimony. And I shared it with great passion and great conviction, which I think is essential when you're sharing your testimony. And by the time I was done, he reversed everything he said. He said, you know what, I take it back. You're not called to go over there. That's what I was telling you about. It's clear that God is calling you to go over to this place and do these things. And it took just a moment of clear conviction and clear passion and testimony for him to change his mind regarding those things. Then there's unfortunately, there's pastors we've met with who've done the same thing, where, hey, join our ministry. No, God hasn't called you over there. God's called you over there, over here. But I just, for me, the passion of my own testimony, the conviction of my own calling has convinced more people than my presentation.
Yeah. Because unfortunately, sometimes some people can say, wow, we love you and your passion for ministry. here's the manifestation of how it needs to look to fit
That's right.
my needs. And that might
That's right.
not actually be what your vision fully is.
Right. And this is something I share with our missionaries. And this is a positive spin on it, which I do think is very accurate. A young, vibrant, passionate, spirit-filled believer that's willing to preach and teach to others is actually worth their weight in gold. And many times, people you get around recognize that. They recognize the rare air you're actually in. And I share this with our students. I said, most of today's, especially in America, most of today's Christians are going to die and go to heaven having told nobody about the hope that's within them, having told no one the reason why they believe. Yet you have chosen a profession where you live because you tell. You exist and breathe to tell or participate in the spreading of the gospel. That is rare. And when you meet with other ministers who recognize in you, it actually, in a backwards way, is a very high compliment that they're trying to redirect you close to them.
Right.
Trying to redirect you near them. They're trying to redirect you to be a part of what they're doing, because it is a precious thing that is hard to develop on many cases on their own. So included with that, some people try to buy sons and daughters versus build sons and daughters.
Yes.
So you come along, they'd rather purchase you and redirect you versus build their own. And that's a short statement, but it's packed with meaning for me, because again, the conviction that I have, or that I've developed, really helps me understand that it's not always a negative thing when they offer alternative opportunity, but it does highlight the need for more people to preach the gospel, more people to live out their testimony in front of others.
I want to interrupt this podcast for a brief heads up. This is Steve Shadrach, author of The God Ask. Support Raising Solutions is running a contest to win an SRS swag pack. Go check out our past podcast episode, number 29, to get details on how you can get involved and possibly win some fun Support Raising Solutions swag, including a $100 gift card.
Just a brief sidebar here to our listeners. Perhaps you've wanted to recruit someone to your staff team but aren't sure how to broach the topic of support raising without either scaring them away or shoving a full copy of the God Ask book into their hands. So wouldn't you like an 8-page booklet that might calm their fears and quickly unpack the basic how-tos from a practical and biblical perspective? We actually have a booklet like that. It's called The 5 Keys to Support Raising, and you can get these booklets in English or in Spanish at cmmpress.org. You'll receive an additional 10% discount if you use the code SRS Podcast.
And sometimes, though, it is negatives.
Yeah, sometimes it is.
And you shared
sometimes
one.
It is.
And I had one, it was a few years back now at least, but when I sat down with a gentleman, and obviously I train and equip ministry leaders to survive and thrive. That's my passion. That's why I have the role of training director in SRS. But as I sat and explained to a gentleman that goes to the church I go to, and he runs a men's ministry, and so he's an active dude himself. But as I explained to him what I did, and that I get on an airplane every now and then for the work that I do, he became rather pointed and said, I don't think that that's necessary. I said, I'm sorry, what? And he goes, no, it's great that you want to serve ministry leaders, but I think right here in Arkansas, we have enough ministers being in the Bible Belt that you really just probably need to put more of your energies around here and don't spread yourself so thin.
Right.
He wasn't joking. I mean, he really started to explain, what he believed, how I should be spending my time, and, really my missiology and a lot of different things.
Right.
And there was an awkward moment. And I finally said, I don't remember what his name was, but I recognize him when I see him. I know that. But I said, John, you know what? Man, I appreciate your opinion on that. I really do. But the reality is God has clearly led me to serve in the role that I'm serving. And I don't think I would be really obedient if I was doing it in the way that you described. He kind of had a startled look on his face. He goes, well, but I think that's what you're supposed to be doing. And I said, well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
That's
But
right.
I'm not going to be changing course on what obedience looks like, as far as I believe I've heard God clearly.
Right.
And,
Very
and
good.
there was a minute or two, maybe it wasn't that long. It seemed like 20, where we sat there and looked at each other. And then we spent about 5 minutes finishing our coffee and doing small talk, and that was it. That was the end. And honestly, I was okay with that. To put it a little bluntly, I'm really glad that he's not on my team, because I feel like I would have to constantly explain and defend how I'm spending my time, and I don't need a team member like that.
Right, right. And it's amazing how the diversity of opinions has a spectrum in it, because as you mentioned, you have those from a negative position are trying to divert you because they just think you're doing the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have others who think you're doing it the wrong way.
Uh-huh.
There's others who think you should be doing it with other people. Join this church group, join this ministry team. And then you have those that love you very much, who just don't see what you see.
Yeah.
I joked about it before. I said, I've been doing this for 10 years before my parents would introduce me as someone who had a real job. And so their description of me.
I'm sorry for laughing.
Oh, no, it's accurate. I laugh at it because their description of me was, hear them stumbling and bumbling over, what does DeNail do? He's a mobilizer, he's a teacher, he's a trainer, he's a missionary. They go, this is my son, he's a pastor. I'm not, well, that's all that people understand. Now they get it. Now they completely get it. But it took amount of time and persistence on my part, persistence on my wife's part, of standing firm, learning how to clarify why we would do what we do, and whether it was good or bad, lucrative or for better or for worse, it was still the Lord's will for us. It was still what God woke us up to do. And so some people, they love you very much, and they'll try to redirect you because they think they're redirecting you from harm, redirecting you from hurt. You have others who try to direct you into, quote unquote, a better opportunity. And then you have others who just say, look, what you're doing is wrong. You're already in the hurt position. I'm trying to help you and heal you. My point by saying all that is that no matter what you do, you need to do with the conviction that it is the Lord that brought you there, that brought you to that moment. Because even your answer is a testimony to them. Where even if you agree to disagree, you standing your ground is a testimony to them, especially if over time you can point to that moment and see how God has blessed you, fulfilled your ministry, blessed your family, enhanced your calling. And you can point back to the moments of when somebody doubted you or tried to divert you. And you can point that back to the moment and say, see, had I changed course, I would have cheated myself.
Yep.
And so I think it's great to be able to look back at it. Hindsight, being 20/20 really helps with that.
Yes, it really does. It really does. So obviously, there's a lot more that could be said on this topic. And the reality is, every now and then, you, the listener, if you're in the process of raising your funding, you're probably going to come across someone that they don't even realize they're, hopefully they wouldn't do it on purpose, but they don't even realize how almost offensive it might be that they're in that meeting. They're trying to refocus your ministry, refocus your time, refocus your geography. And I would just give a caution. Don't just get offended at that. Consider, what is it perhaps that you didn't explain so well that has helped them jump to that conclusion. It might be something that you haven't said or you didn't say well. It might very well be that, even though we know it could be, as DeNail, I think you wisely said earlier, it might just be their limited experience, their limited involvement, their lack of understanding that for whatever reason they can't see by. But at the end of the day, we hope that we hope that you're prepared for that moment when you realize somebody has, whether purposefully or not purposely, they've challenged you. They've challenged you to refocus your ministry in the vision that God has given you. And we want you to think about that well. So DeNail, this is actually the end of our 5-part series. So I kind of want to give you the platform and let you kind of have last say today, but before we close it out.
You know what, Aaron, it's been great being with you. I've always enjoyed our conversations, and I love what I do, and I love the people that I do it with, including you and SRS. Thank you so much for teaching people all around the world how to be fully funded and faith-filled in this process. For me, the thing that I've enjoyed regarding MPD or building my funds is that I've chosen not to do it alone. No matter where you are, become a part of a community of believers that can back you up, that can stand with you as you're raising your funding. And Aaron said it many times before, get trained. Intuition is great, but training is better, because it's intuition that stunts your lifestyle. Training will enhance your lifestyle. Get trained, and then get trained again. Something we encourage all of our missionaries to do. Don't sit through one training, sit through many. I liken training to changing a diaper. When I was single, I don't care. It doesn't matter how well the teacher was about changing diapers. It didn't apply to my life.
Nope.
So I didn't add it. But there's things about the trainings that you'll go through, specifically with SRS. Some things apply to you in the moment will enhance you. But I guarantee you, if you go through the training even again, you'll hear things that they may have been said before, but you didn't hear them before. And so we also include in our lifestyle with our missionaries, not just a lifestyle of living this life, but a lifestyle of learning this life. Go through trainings again and again and again. And then finally train others. Talk to others about what you do.
Yeah.
Share with others what you've learned, and you'll be better at this lifestyle than ever.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Yeah, you and I are man, we're trying to walk the walk, talk the talk, and model it for people. But we invite others to join us. In fact, maybe share this podcast with some friends that also raise and live off support. If you yourself or maybe people haven't had great training, send them a link to the SRS Bootcamp. Something, be a blessing in their life. And man, I thank you so much for your time, DeNail. This has been a fun 5-part series. God bless you, my friend.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. We would love to hear your ideas for future content. Please visit supportraisingsolutions.org/feedback to share your thoughts and questions. Also, wherever you download your podcast from, be sure to subscribe for future episodes and come back each week to gain more insight into the process of building and maintaining your personal support team.